Rich man removed his pregnant wife from the will and added his mistress. But when the will was read, everyone was shocked by the final clause. The Pacific gleamed like liquid gold beneath the setting California sun as Thaddeus "Thad" Adler stood on the balcony of his oceanfront Newport Beach mansion. At 58, Thad commanded every room he entered, 6'2" with silver-streaked hair that complemented his perpetual tan. His tailored suit jacket hung casually over his arm, custom shirt sleeves rolled to expose a Rolex that caught the fading light. "Beautiful view, isn't it?" he called over his shoulder without turning. Imogen Barrett Adler stepped onto the balcony, her auburn hair catching fire in the sunset. At 32, she moved with the quiet confidence of someone who had found her place in a world she wasn't born into. "Never gets old," she replied, sliding beside him. Thad's arm circled her waist possessively. "Like you," he murmured into her hair. 5 years ago, Thad had been a divorced real estate titan with a reputation for transforming struggling properties into gold mines. His company, Adler Properties, had reshaped the Newport Beach skyline. When the Getty Museum hired Imogen to restore a damaged Rembrandt, neither expected the charity gala where they met would change their lives. "Dad, Imogen," Lowell's voice echoed from inside. "Caterers need final approval on the menu." Lowell Adler navigated through the crowded living room where staff prepared for tonight's dinner party. At 30, he had his father's height, but his late mother's softer features. As COO of Adler Properties, he balanced his father's aggressive vision with measured pragmatism. "Can't they handle it?" Thad muttered. Imogen squeezed his arm. "It's fine. I'll take care of it." As she walked away, Thad's eyes lingered on her slender figure, still unchanged despite the news they planned to announce tonight. "You could help instead of staring," Lowell said, stepping beside his father. Thad smirked. "Your stepmother's perfectly capable. She shouldn't have to do everything." Lowell's relationship with his father had always been complicated, but his bond with Imogen had formed quickly. "Have a drink, son. You work too hard." Thad clapped him on the shoulder before heading inside. Lowell watched him go, then joined Imogen in the kitchen where she reviewed catering details with practiced ease. 3 years into marriage with his father had transformed the once reserved art restorer into a confident hostess. "Need backup?" he offered. Imogen smiled gratefully. "Your father thinks these things happen by magic. Dad thinks everything in life should arrange itself around his convenience." Despite his criticism, Lowell's tone held affection. Nervous about tonight, her hand instinctively touched her still flat stomach. "Terrified." "He'll be thrilled," Lowell assured her, though his expression betrayed uncertainty. The pregnancy had been unexpected. After their whirlwind courtship and wedding, Imogen had maintained her career, establishing a small restoration studio near Laguna Beach while embracing the privileges of being Mrs. Adler. Children hadn't been discussed until recently, when Thad had casually mentioned carrying on the Adler legacy. "I hope so." Imogen straightened her emerald dress, chosen to complement her eyes. "Sometimes I catch him looking worried." "Dad's complicated, trust me. Beneath all that alpha male bluster, he's probably picking out Ivy League colleges already." The doorbell announced the first guest's arrival. Within an hour, the mansion filled with Newport Beach's elite. Developers, politicians, old money and new, all orbiting Thad as he held court in the living room. Imogen circulated gracefully, the consummate hostess, though few of these people were genuinely her friends. When she'd married Thad, some whispered gold digger behind crystal champagne flutes. Despite her respectable career and middle-class Oregon upbringing, she'd proven them wrong by maintaining her independence while seamlessly integrating into Thad's world. "Magnificent party," Senator Whitman commented, kissing Imogen's cheek. "Your touch is evident everywhere." "Thank you. We have an announcement later," she confided with a smile. As Imogen moved toward the kitchen to check on dinner, she noticed an unfamiliar woman standing beside Thad. Tall, sleek, with sharp features and calculating eyes. The woman leaned close as Thad spoke, her perfume subtle but expensive. Lowell appeared at Imogen's side. "That's Morgan Winters. Dad hired her last week. New executive assistant." He didn't mention any new assistant. Imogen's brow furrowed. Apparently she's some Harvard Business School wunderkind. Dad's been raving about her strategic mind all week. Lowell's tone suggested skepticism. Morgan Winters looked about 35, with raven hair cut in a severe bob that emphasized her strong jawline. Her black sheath dress was understated but precisely tailored. As Imogen watched, Morgan laughed at something Thad said, touching his arm with manicured fingers. "Should we rescue your father from his new employee?" Imogen suggested lightly. "Something tells me he doesn't want rescuing," Lowell muttered. Dinner proceeded flawlessly. Crystal glinted beneath chandeliers as courses arrived and departed with choreographed precision. Thad commanded the head of the table, Imogen to his right, Lowell to his left. Morgan had been seated several places down, a position of honor for a new employee. Between the main course and dessert, Thad stood raising his glass. The room quieted immediately. "Friends, we've gathered you here tonight for more than just Imogen's incredible hospitality." His hand found hers, squeezing it as she rose beside him. "We're delighted to announce that the Adler family is growing. Imogen and I are expecting our first child together." Applause erupted. Champagne glasses clinked. Congratulations flowed as Imogen accepted embraces, and Thad received backslaps from contemporaries who joked about still having it at his age. "How wonderful," Morgan said when she reached Imogen, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Thad must be thrilled." "We both are," Imogen replied, noticing how Morgan used her husband's first name with easy familiarity. "He mentioned he wasn't sure about starting over with diapers and midnight feedings," Morgan continued, "but I told him he doesn't seem like a man who backs down from challenges." Before Imogen could respond, Morgan moved on, leaving a cloud of expensive perfume and unease behind her. Later, as the party wound down, Imogen found Thad in his study with several men, cigars creating a haze despite the open windows. "There she is!" Thad's enthusiasm seemed genuine as he pulled her into the room. "My beautiful wife and the mother of my future heir." She smiled as the men offered congratulations, but noticed how his hand pressed against her back, guiding, possessing, displaying. "We're ecstatic," Thad continued, "already planning the nursery. Only the best for an Adler." His words contrasted sharply with what he'd said privately last week. "A baby changes everything, Imogen. Are we ready for that kind of disruption?" As the last guests departed, Imogen slipped off her heels in the foyer. Lowell helped staff clear glasses, while Thad reviewed contracts in his study, work never far from his mind. "Successful evening," Imogen said, joining Lowell. "Definitely." He hesitated. "That Morgan woman, did she say something to upset you?" Imogen considered lying, then sighed. "She mentioned your father having reservations about the baby." Lowell's expression darkened. "Dad needs to learn what's appropriate to share with his assistant." "Maybe I misunderstood." Imogen didn't believe this, but loyalty ran deep. A burst of laughter from the study interrupted them. The door had opened, revealing Thad and Morgan examining documents together, standing unnecessarily close. "It's getting late," Lowell observed loudly. Thad glanced up. Morgan had some brilliant insights on the Westlake development. "Don't wait up, Imogen. This might take a while." "Of course." Imogen's voice remained steady. "Lovely meeting you, Morgan." "Likewise." Morgan's smile was perfect, professional. "Congratulations again on your news." As Imogen climbed the stairs to their bedroom, she heard Morgan's low laughter again, followed by Thad's deeper chuckle. Something proprietary in their shared mirth sent a chill through her. In the master bathroom, Imogen studied her reflection as she removed her earrings. The woman in the mirror looked confident, beautiful, a woman who had everything. So why did uncertainty cloud her green eyes? Downstairs, Lowell lingered, watching his father and Morgan through the partially open study door. He noticed how Thad leaned toward her when she spoke, how his eyes followed her movements with undisguised interest, how Morgan positioned herself to maximize her proximity. Lowell recognized the signs. He'd seen his father operate this way before, with Imogen herself, with his first wife before her, with countless women between. The familiar pattern ignited both anger and resignation. As Morgan gathered her things to leave, Thad walked her to the door, his hand resting at the small of her back in exactly the same possessive manner he'd displayed with Imogen earlier. "You're a natural at this," Thad told her. "I think we'll work very well together." "I'm looking forward to it," Morgan replied, her voice honey smooth with ambition and something more. Lowell stepped back into shadow as they passed, unseen. The look that passed between his father and Morgan Winters wasn't just professional admiration or casual flirtation. It was recognition, two predators acknowledging each other's hunger. As the front door closed behind Morgan, Lowell's stomach tightened with dread. His father had built an empire through ruthless calculation and unerring instinct for opportunity. Now, with Imogen pregnant upstairs and Morgan's perfume lingering in the foyer, Lowell sensed the foundations of that empire beginning to shift in ways none of them could predict. 3 months after the announcement party, Imogen stood before the bathroom mirror, hands cradling her growing bump. Morning light illuminated the master suite, but the king-sized bed beside her remained undisturbed on Thad's side. Another night, he hadn't come home. Her phone chimed with a text from her husband. Early meeting with investors. Sleep well? The casual inquiry lacked any acknowledgement of his absence. Imogen typed and deleted several responses before settling on, "Fine. Ultrasound at 2 p.m. today." His reply came quickly, "Can't make it." Morgan scheduled back-to-back meetings. Next time. There wouldn't be many next times. Each appointment marked dwindling opportunities for Thad to connect with their child before birth. Imogen set the phone down, refusing to let disappointment ruin her day. As her pregnancy had progressed, Thad's enthusiasm had inversely waned. The nursery renovations he'd initially micromanaged now proceeded without his input. His questions about the baby had diminished from daily inquiries to occasional afterthoughts. "He's probably nervous about being an older father," Lowell suggested during their weekly lunch, though his expression betrayed doubt. "Maybe," Imogen conceded, picking at her salad. "But it's more than that. He's just gone, even when he's physically present." Lowell hesitated before speaking. "Dad's been spending a lot of time at the downtown office, the one Morgan set up." "The satellite office I didn't know about until last week?" Imogen's voice remained level, but her grip on her water glass tightened. "He claims it's more convenient for client meetings." Lowell wouldn't meet her eyes. Imogen had discovered the downtown office's existence accidentally when a delivery of Thad's dry cleaning arrived at the house with a receipt listing the alternate address. When confronted, Thad had dismissed her concerns as pregnancy paranoia. Back at home, Imogen entered what had once been Thad's home office, but now functioned as her temporary studio. With her pregnancy-limiting chemical exposure in her professional studio, she'd focused on art research and assessment work. The room's afternoon light soothed her as she examined a potentially valuable landscape a client had inherited. Her phone buzzed with a FaceTime request from Eliza, her closest friend since college, and now a family law attorney. Imogen welcomed the distraction. "How's my favorite mama-to-be?" Eliza's warm smile filled the screen. "Growing by the minute. How's the Davidson case?" "Settled this morning." "Listen, about your baby shower next week." "Thad's confirmed he'll make an appearance," Imogen interrupted. "At least that's what he's saying now." Eliza's expression shifted. "That's actually what I wanted to discuss. She paused, seeming to reconsider her words. "Imogen, when was the last time you and Thad really talked?" "We talk every day," Imogen replied automatically, then amended, "Well, we text. He's been traveling so much lately. Seattle last week, San Diego this weekend for some developer conference." Eliza's hesitation was palpable. "San Diego, huh? Why? What's wrong?" "I didn't want to do this over the phone, but..." Eliza took a deep breath. "Remember Jake Mendez from my firm? He was in San Diego last night at Addison. Addison was one of California's most exclusive restaurants, intimate, Michelin-starred, and notoriously difficult to book. He saw Thad there," Eliza continued carefully, "with Morgan." Imogen maintained her composure. "They worked together. Business dinners happen. Jake sent me this." Eliza's face disappeared, replaced by a photograph. The image quality was excellent. Thad and Morgan at a corner table illuminated by candlelight. His hand covered hers on the table. Morgan leaned forward, laughing at something he'd said. The intimacy between them was unmistakable, electric. Most damning was Thad's expression, unguarded adoration Imogen hadn't seen directed at her in months. "I'm so sorry," Eliza's voice returned as her face reappeared. "Jake got an anonymous text with this photo right after he spotted them. Message said, 'Your friend deserves to know the truth.'" Imogen stared blankly at the screen. "Someone saw them and sent this to Jake specifically? How would they know he's connected to me? Newport Beach is smaller than it seems," Eliza said gently, "especially in certain circles." After ending the call with promises from Eliza to come over later, Imogen sat motionless, one hand on her belly where the baby kicked steadily. The pieces aligned with terrible clarity. Thad's increasing absences, the secret downtown office, his perpetual distraction when home, The constant phone checking, the way he turned his screen away when messages arrived, the late-night showers before coming to bed, the subtle shift in his cologne. She'd attributed everything to work stress and adjustment to the pregnancy. What a convenient blindness she'd maintained. The house phone rang, shattering her thoughts. The housekeeper answered, then appeared at the studio door. "Mrs. Adler? Mr. Lowell is on the line. He says it's urgent." Imogen picked up, heart racing. "Lowell? Imogen, His voice sounded strained. "I just overheard Dad canceling his San Diego trip this weekend. He told Morgan they should stick closer to home this time." "They've done this before," Imogen stated flatly. A long pause. "I'm not sure what you mean." "San Diego, the trip this past weekend. They were at Addison together." Lowell exhaled slowly. "I was afraid of this. Dad's been having Morgan handle his schedule exclusively. Nobody else can book his appointments or even see his calendar anymore." "How long have you suspected?" The calm in her voice surprised even her. "Suspecting and knowing are different things," Lowell replied carefully. "But he's been following a familiar pattern. I just didn't want to believe he'd do this to you." After hanging up, Imogen moved with newfound determination. She changed into a fitted maternity dress that accentuated rather than concealed her pregnancy, applied makeup and styled her hair. If she was going to confront reality, she would do so at full strength. The drive downtown took 30 minutes. The satellite office occupied the 12th floor of a sleek high-rise with views of the Pacific. The receptionist recognized her immediately. "Mrs. Adler, we weren't expecting you. I wanted to surprise my husband with lunch." Imogen smiled, holding up a bag from Thad's favorite deli. "Is he available?" "He's in a meeting with Ms. Winters, but they should be finishing soon. Would you like me to? I'll just pop my head in." Imogen was already moving toward the corner office with its frosted glass door. "I know the way." "Mrs. Adler, I don't think—" Imogen had already reached the door. She knocked once, perfunctorily, then pushed it open. The office was spacious, designed with the same clean modernism as Thad's main workspace. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the ocean view, but Imogen barely registered these details, her focus entirely on the scene before her. Thad sat on the edge of his desk, jacket discarded, tie loosened. Between his knees stood Morgan, her blouse partially unbuttoned, his hands gripping her waist. They were kissing with the comfortable familiarity of established lovers. They broke apart at the sound of the door opening. Morgan immediately stepped back, adjusting her clothing with practiced efficiency. Thad's expression cycled rapidly from shock to guilt to something harder. "Imogen." His voice was perfectly controlled. "This isn't what it looks like." The absurdity of the denial, standing before irrefutable evidence, might have made her laugh under different circumstances. "Really?" Imogen's voice remained steady as she set the lunch bag on a nearby chair. "Because it looks exactly like my husband is having an affair with his executive assistant. Is that not what's happening?" Morgan gathered her tablet and phone. "I should give you two some privacy." "Stay." Thad's command stopped her retreating steps. "We have nothing to hide, Morgan." Imogen raised an eyebrow. "Nothing except the buttons on her blouse." Morgan flushed but held her ground, straightening her shoulders with cold dignity. "How long?" Imogen asked, hand instinctively cradling her belly. Thad stood, adjusting his tie. "Imogen, let's discuss this at home. This isn't the place. The place is wherever I finally get the truth." "How long, Thad?" His jaw tightened. "This isn't productive." 3 months, Morgan interjected coolly. "Since 2 weeks after I was hired." Imogen calculated swiftly. "Before we even announced the pregnancy." "This has nothing to do with the baby." Thad's tone softened in what Imogen recognized as his negotiation voice. "People grow apart. You've changed since becoming pregnant. You're always tired, emotional." "Don't you dare." Imogen's composure cracked. "Don't you dare make this about my pregnancy." "It's not just that." Thad moved toward her, keeping the desk between them. "We married quickly. Perhaps too quickly. Morgan and we connect intellectually, professionally." "Is that what you call it?" Imogen gestured toward Morgan's still disheveled appearance. Morgan stepped forward. "Thaddeus and I share a vision, for business, for life. We didn't plan this, but—" "Stop talking." Imogen didn't raise her voice, but her tone cut through the room. "You don't get to speak to me about vision or plans while carrying on with my husband behind my back." Thad's expression hardened. "That's enough. Morgan has been respectful about this situation. More than many would be." "Respectful?" Imogen nearly choked on the word. "Do you hear yourself? I hear a man who's trying to navigate a difficult situation with dignity, he replied coolly. Something you seem incapable of at the moment. The calculated cruelty of his words struck her like a physical blow. In an instant, she saw Thad with complete clarity, not as the charismatic, powerful man she'd fallen in love with, but as someone capable of extraordinary selfishness disguised as righteousness. You haven't even asked if I'm okay, she observed quietly. Your pregnant wife finds you kissing another woman, and your first concern is protecting your dignity and hers. A flicker of shame crossed his face, quickly replaced by defensive anger. Of course I care if you're okay. But bursting in here, creating a scene— I brought you lunch, Imogen interrupted, gesturing to the forgotten bag. I came to surprise my husband because I missed him. That's not creating a scene, that's being a wife. Morgan checked her watch in a theatrical display of impatience. Thaddeus, we have the conference call with Singapore in 20 minutes. The casual use of his full name, a privilege even Imogen rarely exercised, and the proprietary tone revealed volumes about their relationship's depth. Go home, Imogen, Thad said, his voice gentler but no less dismissive. We'll discuss this tonight like rational adults. Imogen studied them both, Thad with his practiced concern that never reached his eyes, Morgan with her barely concealed triumph. They stood together, already a unit, while she stood alone. There's nothing to discuss. Imogen's voice was steady again. I won't be leaving our home. You've made your choice clear, now you can live with the consequences. As she turned to leave, Thad called after her. Don't make this uglier than it needs to be. Imogen paused at the door, one hand on her belly where their child kicked vigorously, as if sensing her distress. You've done that all by yourself. She met his gaze directly. And for the record, Thad, I haven't changed. You've simply revealed who you really are. The door closed behind her with a soft click that belied the seismic shift that had just occurred. In the elevator, Imogen maintained her composure, back straight, expression neutral. Only when she reached her car did she allow the first tears to fall, not for the marriage she was losing, but for the bitter recognition of how thoroughly she had been deceived. Her phone buzzed with a text from Thad. We need to talk about arrangements going forward. I'll be home at 8. The clinical detachment of his message confirmed what she'd glimpsed in his office. There would be no apologies, no genuine remorse, only negotiations for his most advantageous exit. Imogen started the car, one hand protectively covering her belly. It's just us now, she whispered to her unborn child, but we're going to be okay. As she pulled away from the building, she didn't see Morgan watching from the 12th floor window, phone pressed to her ear, a smile of satisfaction playing across her lips. The guest bedroom's neutral palette felt appropriately austere to Imogen as she arranged her essential belongings. The cavernous master suite with its ocean view now seemed like contested territory, and she had no desire to share space with a man who returned home smelling of another woman's perfume. This is ridiculous. Thad stood in the doorway watching her organize her prenatal vitamins on the nightstand. The master has a king-sized bed. We don't even have to sleep near each other. That's not the point, Imogen replied without looking up. Then what is the point? To punish me, to create drama. His exasperation echoed in the smaller room. I've already said I'm willing to work on our marriage. Imogen finally faced him. No, you said you're willing to consider counseling after the baby comes. That's not the same thing. I'm trying to be practical. You're 7 months pregnant. This isn't the time for major decisions. You made a major decision when you started sleeping with Morgan. Thad's jaw tightened. I've apologized for hurting you. You've apologized for the inconvenience of being caught, Imogen corrected. It's not the same thing. He leaned against the doorframe, suddenly looking every bit his 58 years. What do you want from me, Imogen? I want you to leave me alone. She turned back to organizing her things, signaling the conversation's end. The first week after discovery followed a tense pattern. Thad oscillated between conciliatory gestures, flowers delivered to the house, prenatal massage appointments scheduled, gourmet meals ordered from her favorite restaurants, and cold withdrawal when these offerings failed to soften her position. In his business-oriented mind, every problem had a solution, usually financial. When material gestures proved ineffective, he tried rationalization. These things happen in marriages, he explained over an untouched dinner. Especially with our age difference. I still care for you deeply. We're having a child together, that connection is permanent. You're right about one thing, Imogen agreed, pushing away her plate. We will always be connected through our child. That's why I'm still here. But don't mistake my presence for forgiveness. By the second week, Thad's patience with reconciliation was visibly waning. His late nights at the office became more frequent. His inquiries about the pregnancy grew perfunctory. The performance of the repentant husband required more effort than he was accustomed to exerting without immediate results. On a rain-soaked Tuesday evening, Imogen was reviewing birth plan options in the living room when Thad arrived home earlier than usual. His expression held none of the artificial pleasantness he'd maintained recently. "We need to discuss practical matters," he announced, pouring himself 2 fingers of scotch. "I've been patient, but this situation isn't sustainable." Imogen set her tablet aside. "I agree." "Good." He seemed momentarily thrown by her acquiescence. "Then you'll return to our bedroom and we can begin rebuilding." "That's not what I meant." Imogen shifted uncomfortably, her advanced pregnancy making even the plush sofa inadequate. "I meant, we need to discuss separation terms." The glass froze halfway to his lips. "Is that what Eliza's been advising? Because your lawyer friend doesn't understand what's at stake." "Eliza hasn't advised anything. This is my decision." Thad drained his scotch and poured another. "You're being emotional. After the baby, stop using our child as a milestone for when you might bother to respect me." Imogen interrupted. "I'm not leaving this house before the birth. After that, we'll need to establish a custody arrangement." His laugh lacked humor. "You think this is that simple? That you can just decide these things unilaterally? No simpler than you deciding our marriage was disposable." Thad set his glass down with deliberate control. "I've made mistakes, I've admitted that, but you seem determined to punish rather than resolve." "I'm focused on protecting myself and our baby," Imogen corrected. "Something you should understand, given how carefully you protect your own interests." His expression shifted, calculation replacing frustration. "Speaking of interests, I should inform you of some changes I've made. Since you're insisting on this adversarial approach, I've instructed Vernon to modify my will." The casual delivery of this bombshell struck Imogen like a physical blow. Vernon Powell had been Thad's attorney for decades, handling everything from business contracts to personal matters. "What changes?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. "I've removed you as a beneficiary." Thad's tone was conversational, as if discussing a minor scheduling change. "The baby will have a trust fund, accessible at 25. Morgan will be my executor and primary heir, along with Lowell's existing provisions." Imogen stared at him, momentarily speechless. The calculated cruelty of the announcement, delivered without warning in their living room, revealed a vindictiveness she hadn't fully recognized before. "You're using your will as a weapon?" she finally managed. "I'm protecting my legacy." Thad finished his second scotch. "Since you're determined to turn this into a war, I'm simply clarifying the battle lines." "Our child is your legacy too," Imogen said quietly, "and I've provided generously for him. Or her." He waved dismissively. "But you've made your position clear. Now I've made mine equally clear." After he left the room, Imogen remained motionless, one hand on her belly where the baby kicked vigorously, as if sensing her distress. The action wasn't just financially punitive, it was a statement about her value in his life, a complete erasure of their years together. The next morning, Imogen called Lowell, needing at least one ally in the Adler family. They met at a quiet cafe near his apartment. The moment he saw her face, his expression darkened. "What happened?" When Imogen explained about the will, Lowell's reaction surprised her with its intensity. His normally controlled demeanor cracked, showing genuine rage. "He can't do this to you," he insisted, hands clenching around his coffee cup. "Using the will as leverage while you're pregnant. It's despicable." "He can do whatever he wants with his money," Imogen replied wearily. "I'm more concerned about what this means for co-parenting." Lowell reached across the table, covering her hand with his. "You're not alone in this. Dad may control the fortune, but he doesn't control everything." "I appreciate that," Imogen smiled faintly, "but I don't want to put you in the middle." "I put myself there," Lowell said firmly. "When Dad and Morgan show up for lunch today, I'll make my position perfectly clear." Imogen's cup froze halfway to her lips. "Morgan is coming to lunch? At your apartment?" Lowell winced. "I should have led with that. Dad texted last night saying he's bringing Morgan to discuss family business. Let me guess. I wasn't invited." "You are now," Lowell said with grim determination. As far as I'm concerned, you're more family than she'll ever be. The confrontation at Lowell's sleek downtown apartment was explosive from the moment Thad spotted Imogen sitting at the dining table. "What is she doing here?" he demanded, Morgan hovering uncertainly behind him. "I invited my stepmother to lunch," Lowell replied calmly. "Since we're discussing family business, she belongs here." Morgan stepped forward, impeccably dressed in a navy sheath dress that highlighted her slender figure, a deliberate contrast to Imogen's maternal state. "Perhaps I should wait downstairs." "Stay," Thad commanded, just as he had in his office during the confrontation. "We have nothing to hide, except apparently major changes to your will," Lowell interjected. "Were you planning to mention that today?" Thad's expression hardened. "My estate planning is my business." "It becomes my business when you use it to punish an innocent woman carrying your child," Lowell fired back. "I'm protecting my interests," Thad insisted. "Something you should understand as a businessman. This isn't business. This is cruelty." Morgan cleared her throat delicately. "Thaddeus is ensuring the proper stewardship of his legacy. The baby will be well provided for. Imogen's demands—" "Don't," Imogen interrupted quietly. "Don't pretend to care about my child's welfare while you're sleeping with my husband and positioning yourself to control his fortune." Thad slammed his hand on the table. "Enough! This hostility is exactly why I've made these changes. You've both become liabilities to the Adler name." "The Adler name?" Lowell's laugh was bitter. "Is that what this is about? Because I remember when it was just you and me, Dad. Before the empire. Before the legacy. When we were just trying to make rent on that one bedroom in Long Beach. That's ancient history," Thad dismissed. "We've built something significant now, something that needs proper protection." "And you think Morgan is that protection?" Lowell gestured toward her. "Someone you've known for months versus your wife of 4 years and your son?" Morgan remained impressively composed. "I understand your emotional reaction, Lowell, but Thaddeus and I share compatible visions for Adler Properties and his legacy." "Compatible visions," Lowell repeated derisively. "Is that what you call it?" The lunch deteriorated further from there, ending when Thad announced coldly, "I see you've chosen sides. That's unfortunate." "There shouldn't be sides in a family," Lowell responded. "There are always sides," Thad replied. "And you've chosen the losing one." As April gave way to May, tensions in the Adler household escalated. Imogen, now 8 months pregnant, maintained her dignified isolation in the guest room, focusing on preparations for the baby and consultation with Eliza about her legal options. The situation took an alarming turn when Morgan began appearing at the house, first for work dinners with Thad, then for weekend strategy sessions, and finally, with increasing boldness, simply as his companion. "This is still my home," Imogen reminded Thad after finding Morgan swimming in the infinity pool one Saturday morning. "Having your mistress lounging around is unacceptable. Morgan is my executive partner and likely my future wife," Thad replied without looking up from his newspaper. "You'll need to adjust your expectations. After the baby comes, we'll discuss your living arrangements." The casual cruelty of his statement, the assumption that Imogen would be the one to leave the home she'd shared with him for years, left her momentarily speechless. Lowell became her steadfast ally, calling daily and visiting frequently. When Thad reduced Lowell's responsibilities at Adler Properties, shifting his authority to Morgan, Lowell refused to be pushed out. "He's counting on me backing down," Lowell told Imogen during a quiet moment on the terrace. "He doesn't realize how much documentation I have on some of his more questionable business practices." "I don't want you destroying your relationship with your father over me," Imogen insisted. "This isn't just about you. It's about his pattern of discarding people when they no longer serve his purpose." Lowell's expression hardened. "I've watched it my whole life. With my mother, with business partners, with friends. Now with you." The final escalation came on a warm evening in late May. Imogen, now days away from her due date, had been experiencing Braxton Hicks contractions all day. She'd planned a quiet dinner alone in the guest room, avoiding another uncomfortable encounter with Thad and Morgan. Her plans were interrupted by a text from Thad, dinner in the dining room at 7. Important discussion about the birth plan and after. Imogen considered refusing but recognized the need to establish clear arrangements before the baby arrived. When she entered the dining room, she found Thad already seated at the head of the table, Morgan at his right hand, the position that had once been Imogen's. "Join us," Thad gestured to the chair opposite Morgan. "The housekeepers prepared salmon." "I'm not hungry," Imogen replied, remaining standing. "What did you want to discuss?" "Sit down," Thad insisted. "This hostility is unnecessary and unhealthy for the baby." Reluctantly, Imogen took the offered seat, hyper-aware of Morgan's calculated smile across the table. "I've had Vernon draw up a preliminary custody agreement," Thad began without preamble. "The baby will primarily reside here, with you having an apartment nearby for your non-custodial time." Imogen stared at him in disbelief. "You can't be serious." "Entirely serious. This house is designed for a child, the grounds, the security, the space. Your art studio apartment wouldn't be suitable." "My art studio apartment? I don't have an apartment, this is my home." Morgan interjected smoothly. "We've found a lovely 2-bedroom in Corona Del Mar. Excellent neighborhood, close enough for convenient handoffs." "We?" Imogen echoed incredulously. "You're house hunting for me now?" Thad continued as if she hadn't spoken. "The baby needs stability, structure. With my resources and Morgan's organizational skills—" "Stop," Imogen interrupted. "Just stop. You don't get to plan my life or decide where your child lives. Be reasonable, Imogen." Thad's tone hardened. "Courts favor stability and resources in custody decisions. Fighting me on this would be expensive and ultimately futile." The naked threat hung in the air between them. As Imogen formulated her response, she noticed Thad rubbing his temple, his face suddenly contorted in pain. "Headache again?" Morgan asked, her tone shifting to concern. "Worse than before," he muttered, pressing his fingers against his forehead. "Much worse." Imogen watched as his face drained of color. "Thad, are you all right?" He attempted to stand, then staggered. "Something's not right." His speech slurred slightly. Morgan rose, moving toward him. "Should I call Dr. Winters?" Before she could reach him, Thad collapsed, his body crumpling to the floor with terrifying suddenness. His eyes rolled back, a strangled sound escaping his throat. "Thad!" Both women cried out simultaneously, rushing to his side. Imogen reached him first, maternal instincts triggering a swift response despite her unwieldy state. "Call 911, she commanded, dropping awkwardly to her knees beside him. Morgan fumbled for her phone, panic replacing her usual composure. "What's happening to him?" "I don't know," Imogen replied, checking his pulse. "But it's bad. Tell them possible stroke or heart attack." As sirens wailed in the distance, Thad's body went rigid, then alarmingly slack. Blood trickled from his nose, a vivid red against his ashen skin. Imogen maintained pressure on his wrist, counting the increasingly erratic pulse beneath her fingers. "Stay with us, Thad," she urged, meeting his unfocused gaze. For a brief moment, recognition flickered in his eyes, not of his wife or his lover, but of his own mortality, suddenly and irrevocably present in the room with them. The paramedics arrived with efficient urgency, pushing both women aside to assess and stabilize him. Their practiced movements and clipped medical terminology created a surreal backdrop as Thad Adler, who had always commanded every room, lay helpless on his imported dining room rug. Severe hypertension, signs of intracranial pressure, possible aneurysm, one paramedic reported into his radio as they transferred Thad to a stretcher. "I'm coming with him," Morgan announced, reaching for her purse. "Family only in the ambulance," the lead paramedic stated firmly. "I'm his wife," Imogen said quietly, one hand supporting her belly as she struggled to her feet. As they wheeled Thad toward the door, his hand suddenly shot out, grasping Imogen's wrist with surprising strength. His eyes locked with hers, desperate to communicate something, before unconsciousness claimed him again. The last image Imogen had of Thaddeus Adler alive was his face, stripped of its usual mask of control, revealing raw fear as the paramedics rushed him into the waiting ambulance. Behind her, Morgan stood in the doorway, her calculated composure shattered by the sudden, unexpected collapse of all her carefully laid plans. Neither woman knew it yet, but Thad was already slipping beyond reach, the massive aneurysm in his brain causing irreversible damage with each passing second. By the time they reached Newport Beach Memorial Hospital, the man who had built an empire, destroyed a marriage, and set in motion events that would continue long after him, would be declared dead on arrival. Coastal fog shrouded Newport Beach the morning of Thaddeus Adler's funeral, casting a grey pall over the proceedings. The memorial service at St. James Episcopal Church drew Newport's elite, developers, politicians, and social figures, all curious to witness the drama of the pregnant widow and the mistress under one Gothic roof. Imogen sat in the front row, draped in elegant black maternity wear, her 9-month belly a stark reminder of Thad's unmet future. Lowell sat beside her, his steady presence anchoring her through the performative grief surrounding them. 3 rows back, Morgan Winters commanded her own orbit of sympathizers, colleagues from Adler Properties who had quickly realigned their loyalties after Thad's collapse. The eulogies painted Thaddeus Adler as visionary, philanthropist, and family man, a sanitized version that bore little resemblance to the complex, often cruel man Imogen had come to know. When Lowell rose to speak, his measured words honored his father's accomplishments while carefully avoiding platitudes. "My father built his legacy brick by brick, through determination and an uncompromising vision," Lowell said, his voice steady. "He taught me that every choice has consequences, and that we must live with the decisions we make, for better or worse." His eyes met Imogen's briefly before continuing. "In his final months, he made choices I didn't agree with. But today, we honor not just who he was at the end, but the totality of his life." As the service concluded, the carefully maintained separation between Thad's 2 worlds collapsed in the receiving line. Imogen stood beside Lowell, accepting condolences with dignified composure, when Morgan appeared directly before her. "He would have wanted unity today," Morgan said, her voice pitched to carry to nearby listeners. "Whatever our differences." Imogen met her gaze evenly. "Thad rarely concerned himself with what others wanted, but I appreciate the sentiment." The exchange, though brief, ignited a flurry of whispers among the funeral attendees. By the time the smaller group assembled at the Adler mansion for the reception, speculation about the imminent will reading dominated hushed conversations. "They're circling like vultures," Lowell muttered, watching clusters of business associates huddled in corners of the living room. "Half of these people are already calculating how to benefit from Dad's death." "Your father would have expected nothing less," Imogen replied, sipping sparkling water. "He cultivated this world." Morgan worked the room with practiced charm, receiving condolences like a widow herself. Her black Armani suit conveyed both mourning and authority, a deliberate statement about her anticipated position. When she approached Lowell and Imogen, her expression was carefully neutral. "Vernon wants to schedule the will reading tomorrow at his office," she informed them. "He feels it's best not to delay given circumstances." Her eyes flickered to Imogen's belly. "How considerate," Imogen replied evenly. "Though I'm surprised you're involved in scheduling it. Thaddeus and I discussed his wishes extensively," Morgan countered smoothly. "I'm simply honoring his intentions." After she walked away, Lowell exhaled slowly. "Her confidence is unsettling. What does she know that we don't?" "We'll find out tomorrow," Imogen said, watching Morgan charm a group of investors. "Though I suspect she's about to become very wealthy." The following morning, Vernon Powell's walnut-paneled conference room hosted an atmosphere of subdued tension. The gathering was small but charged, Imogen visibly uncomfortable in her advanced pregnancy, Lowell protective at her side, Morgan poised and expectant, 2 senior executives from Adler Properties, and a court reporter to document the proceedings. Vernon Powell, at 72, had been Thad's attorney for over 30 years. His silver hair and bow tie projected old-school reliability, while his sharp eyes missed nothing. He adjusted his spectacles and began with practiced solemnity. "We are gathered to read the last will and testament of Thaddeus James Adler. Before I begin, I must note that this is the most recently executed will, dated March 15th of this year, superseding all previous versions." Imogen's heart sank. March 15th, just weeks after her discovery of the affair. The timing confirmed her worst fears about Thad's vindictive response. Vernon read through the formal opening paragraphs, then reached the substantive provisions. "To my son, Lowell Thaddeus Adler, I bequeath 30% ownership in Adler Properties, along with the following personal items." The list included family heirlooms, Thad's vintage car collection, and his first office building. Sentimental touchstones, but not the controlling interest Lowell might have expected. Next came the bombshell. "To Morgan Elizabeth Winters, my loyal executive and partner, I bequeath the following. My primary residence at 1743 Ocean Drive, Newport Beach. 40% ownership interest in Adler Properties. My investment accounts held at Goldman Sachs. And all personal property contained within the primary residence except as otherwise specified." Morgan's expression remained neutral, but her fingers curled slightly around the armrests of her chair, a subtle gesture of triumph. "Additionally," Vernon continued, I appoint Morgan Elizabeth Winters as executor of my estate, with full authority to manage all business affairs during transition. The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees. Imogen kept her face carefully composed, one hand protectively cradling her belly. To my unborn child, Vernon read, I establish a trust fund in the amount of $10 million, to be administered by Newport Trust Company until said child reaches the age of 25, with disbursements for education and healthcare as needed. And to my wife, Imogen Barrett Adler, Vernon paused almost imperceptibly, I bequeath her personal belongings brought into the marriage, her art restoration equipment, and a one-time settlement of $2 million, contingent upon her vacating the Newport Beach residence within 60 days of my death. Lowell's sharp intake of breath broke the silence. That's absurd. She's 9 months pregnant. Vernon held up a hand, indicating he hadn't finished. There is a codicil to the will executed on May 21st, 3 days before Mr. Adler's death. The date registered immediately with Imogen, 3 days before his collapse at dinner. The room stilled as Vernon extracted a separate document from his folder. I, Thaddeus James Adler, being of sound mind, hereby add the following provision to my last will and testament, Vernon read, his voice deliberately even. Having reconsidered my legacy and the values I wish to represent even after death, I establish the following condition. Vernon glanced up, meeting each person's gaze before continuing. All bequests to Morgan Elizabeth Winters, as outlined in my will, shall be contingent upon verification that she maintained a strictly professional relationship with me during my marriage to Imogen Barrett Adler. If evidence emerges proving a romantic or sexual relationship between myself and Morgan Winters prior to legal separation from my wife, all assets designated for Morgan Winters shall instead be divided as follows: 50% to Imogen Barrett Adler and 50% to the trust established for my unborn child. The silence that followed was absolute. Morgan's face drained of color, her composure cracking for the first time. This is preposterous, she finally managed. A forgery or coercion. Thaddeus would never... The codicil bears Mr. Adler's signature, witnessed by myself and my associate, properly notarized, Vernon interrupted calmly. Its authenticity is not in question. Then its enforceability is, Morgan countered, recovering quickly. This is clearly designed to humiliate me. I maintained a professional relationship with Thaddeus until after he separated from his wife. Lowell's harsh laugh broke the tension. Is that the story you're going with? Because half of Dad's office knew about the affair months ago. Speculation isn't evidence, Morgan snapped. Vernon cleared his throat. The codicil outlines a specific procedure. I am directed to engage Holloway Investigations to conduct an independent inquiry into the nature of the relationship. Their findings will determine the distribution of assets. This is unconscionable, Morgan protested, rising from her chair. I will contest this entire will. That is your right, Vernon acknowledged. However, during litigation, all assets remain frozen except for basic maintenance and child-related expenses. The implications settled over the room. A contested will could take years to resolve, during which Morgan would have neither control nor access to the fortune she had positioned herself to acquire. Imogen, who had remained silent throughout, finally spoke. What prompted this codicil, Vernon? Did Thad explain his reasoning? The attorney hesitated. Mr. Adler mentioned having a moment of clarity about his legacy. He expressed concern about how his actions would be viewed by his child someday. Convenient moral awakening, Morgan muttered, pacing the conference room. This is manipulation from beyond the grave. It's exactly how Dad operated in life, Lowell observed. Why would death change that? The meeting concluded with Vernon promising to engage Holloway Investigations immediately and schedule a follow-up once their findings were complete. As the attendees filtered out, Morgan cornered Imogen near the elevator. This changes nothing, she hissed, her poise abandoned. Even if I lose the inheritance, you've already lost Thad. He chose me. Remember that. Imogen regarded her calmly. For a woman who prided herself on strategic thinking, you missed something important about Thad. What's that? Morgan's eyes narrowed. He never chose anyone but himself. Imogen stepped into the elevator, Lowell protectively at her side. Every relationship was transactional for him, including yours. The investigation proceeded with unexpected swiftness. James Holloway, a former FBI agent turned private investigator, approached his task with methodical thoroughness. His team interviewed Adler Properties employees, collected electronic records, and reviewed security footage from the satellite office. 2 weeks after the will reading, as Imogen approached her due date with increasing discomfort, Holloway delivered his findings to Vernon Powell. The evidence was conclusive and damning. Email exchanges between Thad and Morgan dating back to her first month of employment revealed explicit romantic content. Hotel reservations in San Diego, Palm Springs, and Las Vegas appeared regularly on Thad's private credit card, always coinciding with business trips that included Morgan. Most damning was the discovery of a condominium in downtown Newport Beach, purchased through an LLC controlled by Thad, where doorman testimony and security footage confirmed regular visits by both Thad and Morgan for over 6 months. The second will reading occurred in the same conference room, though with a markedly different atmosphere. Morgan arrived with her attorney, a sharp-featured litigator known for aggressive tactics. Imogen, now days past her due date, shifted uncomfortably in her chair while Lowell maintained a protective presence. Vernon summarized Holloway's findings dispassionately, the detailed report available for review by all parties. As the evidence mounted, the fight visibly drained from Morgan. Her attorney whispered urgently in her ear as Vernon concluded his summary. Based on these findings, which clearly establish a romantic and sexual relationship between Thaddeus Adler and Morgan Winters, beginning approximately 3 weeks after her employment and continuing until his death, the conditional clause in the codicil is triggered, Vernon announced. All assets previously designated for Morgan Winters are hereby redirected according to the specified distribution, 50% to Imogen Barrett Adler and 50% to the trust for the unborn child. Morgan's attorney immediately objected. My client reserves all rights to contest these findings and the validity of the codicil itself. So noted, Vernon replied calmly. However, I should inform you that contesting will freeze all assets for the duration of litigation. Additionally, Mr. Adler anticipated potential challenges and included a no-contest clause in the original will. Should Ms. Winters pursue litigation and fail, she forfeits even the limited provisions made for her continued employment at Adler Properties. The attorney paled slightly. We'll need time to consider our position. Of course, Vernon agreed. However, effective immediately, Ms. Winters must vacate the Ocean Drive residence, which now belongs to Mrs. Adler. Security codes will be changed this afternoon. Morgan stood abruptly. This was his final power play, his last act of control. Her composure cracked, revealing raw fury beneath. He knew exactly what he was doing with that codicil. Yes, Imogen agreed quietly. He did. After Morgan and her attorney departed, Vernon outlined the practical implications for Imogen and Lowell. Effectively, immediately, Imogen, you own the Newport Beach residence outright. You and Lowell now control 70% of Adler Properties between you, giving you majority control. The investment accounts will be transferred to your name within the week. Lowell exhaled slowly. He set up the perfect trap. He must have known she'd be caught. Your father was nothing if not thorough, Vernon observed, removing his glasses. The investigators found evidence he'd been documenting the affair himself for months. Receipts, photographs, recordings, almost as if he anticipated this exact scenario. Or created it deliberately, Imogen suggested, wincing as a contraction tightened across her abdomen, the third in the past hour. Vernon hesitated, then reached into his briefcase. There's one more item. Thad left this with instructions to give it to you privately, Imogen. He handed her a sealed envelope. He asked that you open it alone. Imogen accepted the envelope, feeling its weight, physical and symbolic. Before she could respond, a stronger contraction gripped her, causing her to gasp. Imogen. Lowell was immediately alert. I think, she managed as the contraction ebbed, we need to continue this discussion later. My water just broke. The next 12 hours passed in a blur of controlled medical chaos. Lowell remained at the hospital, coordinating with doctors and keeping Eliza updated by phone. By midnight, Imogen's labor had progressed steadily, the baby's heartbeat strong and regular on the monitor. During a moment of clarity between contractions, Imogen asked Lowell to bring her purse, extracting Thad's sealed envelope with trembling fingers. Are you sure you want to read that now? Lowell asked doubtfully. If not now, when? She replied, breaking the seal. Inside was a single handwritten page in Thad's distinctive script. Imogen, by the time you read this, you will have learned about the codicil. You likely believe it was motivated by remorse or a deathbed moral awakening. The truth is more complex. I never intended for Morgan to inherit what I built. She was useful but ultimately disposable, like most people in my life. The affair was real, but so was my documentation of it. I needed her to believe she had secured her future in order to reveal her true character. You will raise my child with the integrity I often lacked. The codicil isn't atonement. It's acknowledgement that you were the better investment for my legacy. This isn't an apology. It's a recognition that in our final game you won by simply being who you are. Thad Imogen stared at the letter, a strange calm settling over her, despite the physical pain of imminent childbirth. The words offered no true remorse, no genuine redemption, just Thad's final calculation, his last strategic move. "What does it say?" Lowell asked gently. Imogen folded the letter and returned it to the envelope. "That your father remained exactly who he was until the end, calculating, strategic, incapable of true remorse." She closed her eyes as another contraction built. "And that, in his own way, he respected me more than I realized." 3 hours later, as dawn broke over Newport Beach, Verity Barrett Adler entered the world with a powerful cry. 7 pounds, 4 ounces of new life, untouched by the complicated legacy she inherited. When the nurse placed her in Imogen's arms, the tangled emotions of the past months, grief, betrayal, anger, vindication, crystallized into something simpler and more profound. "Hello, little one," Imogen whispered, counting perfect fingers and toes. "Your story is just beginning." Lowell, watching from beside the bed, saw in his half-sister's tiny face echoes of the Adler determination, but softened by something his father had never possessed, the potential for genuine compassion. "She's perfect," he said, voice rough with emotion. "Yes," Imogen agreed, meeting his gaze over her daughter's dark head. "And she's free." As Newport Beach awakened to a new day, the reading of Thaddeus Adler's last testament had effectively rewritten the ending he had attempted to orchestrate for years. His final manipulation had inadvertently created something he hadn't anticipated, a future where his legacy would be shaped not by his controlling hand, but by those who had survived it. In room 317 of Newport Beach Memorial Hospital, the same hospital where Thad had been pronounced dead 3 weeks earlier, Imogen held her daughter close, the weight of inheritance, both financial and emotional, settling around them. The victory had come at tremendous cost, but as Verity's tiny hand wrapped around her finger with surprising strength, Imogen recognized that sometimes winning simply means surviving to write your own story. 6 months after Verity's birth, the East Wing of the Adler Mansion underwent a transformation. Where Thad had once showcased his expensive art collection, pieces acquired more for their investment value than aesthetic merit, Imogen created a gallery space filled with natural light and possibility. "The acoustics in here are perfect," remarked Eliza, her voice echoing slightly in the renovated space. Hard to believe this used to be his trophy room. Imogen adjusted Verity on her hip, the infant's curious eyes taking in the pristine white walls and track lighting. "That's exactly why it had to change. I didn't want any room in this house to feel like a monument to him." The Barrett Gallery would open the following week, featuring works by emerging female artists alongside historically overlooked female masters. What had once symbolized Thad's conquests was becoming a celebration of voices he would have likely dismissed. "Have you heard anything about Morgan?" Eliza asked, following Imogen through the connecting door into what had been converted into a bright nursery adjacent to the gallery. "Lowell mentioned she's in Boston. Apparently she landed at a private equity firm." Imogen placed Verity in her crib, the baby immediately reaching for a mobile of colorful geometric shapes. The Newport gossip mill has mostly moved on to fresher scandals. After Morgan's departure, Imogen had discovered how thoroughly she had been erasing herself from the house, even before Thad's death, removing photos, replacing furniture, redesigning rooms. The systematic elimination of Imogen's presence had been so methodical it bordered on chilling. "The foundation paperwork came through yesterday," Imogen continued, watching her daughter's delighted concentration. "The Verity Project is officially incorporated." The Verity Project had been Imogen's response to her own experience, a foundation providing legal assistance to women facing financially powerful spouses in divorce and custody proceedings. Using a portion of her inheritance, she had established a fund for legal fees, temporary housing and childcare during court battles. Thad would hate it, Eliza observed with satisfaction, using his money to help women fight men like him. That's not why I'm doing it, Imogen corrected gently, but I won't pretend there isn't a certain poetic justice. Lowell had become an unexpected ally in the Foundation's creation, leveraging his business connections to secure additional donors. His relationship with his father's memory remained complex. Grief intermingled with lingering anger about Thad's final manipulations. The board at Adler Properties is still adjusting to our new direction, he'd told Imogen during their weekly business lunch. Some resistance was inevitable, but the affordable housing initiative is gaining support. The company that had once specialized in luxury developments was cautiously expanding into mixed-income communities, still profitable, but aligned with values neither Thad nor Morgan would have prioritized. 3 weeks after the gallery opening, Imogen received a small package from Vernon Powell. Inside was a USB drive with a handwritten note. Thad instructed this be delivered 1 year after his death. Given the circumstances, I thought it best to provide it earlier. The choice to view it remains yours. That evening, after putting Verity to bed, Imogen sat in what had been Thad's study, now her own workspace, redecorated in warm tones that erased his austere aesthetic. The USB drive sat on the desk before her, its small form containing whatever final communication Thad had prepared. For several minutes, she simply studied it, uncertain whether to open this last door to the past. Finally, she inserted it into her laptop and opened the single video file it contained. Thad appeared on screen, looking uncharacteristically disheveled. His silver hair lacked its usual perfect styling, and shadows beneath his eyes suggested the recording had been made during a period of stress. The timestamp showed it had been created 3 weeks before his death. "Imogen," he began, his voice carrying the familiar authoritative tone, though slightly rough around the edges. "If you're watching this, everything has proceeded as I anticipated. The codicil worked. Morgan's true nature was exposed, and you've secured your position, and our child's." He paused, seeming to search for words, an unusual hesitation for a man who had always known precisely what to say. "I won't insult you with claims of regret or remorse. We both know better." His expression shifted subtly. "The affair with Morgan was real, but so was my documentation of it. I needed leverage. She became too confident, too entitled to what I'd built." Imogen watched, a complex knot of emotions tightening in her chest as Thad continued. "What I didn't anticipate was how it would feel to watch you navigate the aftermath with such dignity. I've spent my life identifying and exploiting weaknesses. You showed none." He looked away from the camera momentarily, the closest to discomfort she had ever seen from him. "I don't believe in redemption, Imogen. Not for men like me. But I do believe in recognition. I recognized too late what I had in you, not just beauty or youth, but integrity, a quality I've never possessed." The admission, even posthumously, was startling in its uncharacteristic honesty. "Tell our child that I was exactly who I was. No better, no worse. I won't apologize for my choices, but I ensured that neither you nor our child would pay for them." His expression hardened slightly. "Morgan was a calculated risk that served its purpose. You were the better investment for my legacy, the only one I could trust." The video ended abruptly without farewell or closure, so typical of Thad to have the last word while offering no opportunity for response. Imogen closed the laptop slowly, absorbing the final confirmation of what she had already suspected. The codicil hadn't been a moral awakening or attempt at atonement. It had been Thad's final strategic move, eliminating Morgan while ensuring his legacy continued on his terms. She walked to the nursery, drawn to her daughter's peaceful presence. Verity slept soundly, dark lashes against cheeks still rounded with babyhood, one small hand flung above her head in absolute surrender to sleep. In the soft nightlight glow, Imogen studied her face for traces of Thad, the determined set of her jaw perhaps, or the slight furrow between her brows even in sleep. "He tried to control everything, even from beyond the grave," she whispered to her sleeping child. "But he couldn't control who you'll become." The following morning, Imogen met with the first recipient of a Verity Project grant, a young mother fighting for custody against a financially powerful ex-husband who had systematically documented her every perceived failure while concealing his own. "He makes me doubt everything about myself," the woman confessed, tears threatening. like I'm crazy for seeing what's right in front of me. That's precisely why he does it, Imogen replied, recognition flowing between them. But it doesn't make you crazy. It makes you inconvenient to his narrative. Later that evening, as sunset painted the ocean in shades of amber and gold, Imogen walked along the beach with Verity strapped to her chest. The infant's wide eyes tracked seagulls against the darkening sky, her small body warm against her mother's heart. The past year had reshaped every aspect of Imogen's life, transforming her from a wife caught in an elaborate deception to a mother, a foundation director, a gallery owner, and reluctant business partner in Adler Properties. The journey had exacted tremendous emotional toll, each revelation another weight to carry. Yet watching her daughter discover the world with uncomplicated joy offered perspective. Thad's final message revealed he had never truly changed, his posthumous gift simply another calculated move. But his manipulations had inadvertently created space for something genuine to emerge from the wreckage. As darkness settled over Newport Beach, lights began to illuminate mansions along the coastline, including her own. The home that had once been Thad's showpiece was slowly becoming something else, a place of creation rather than acquisition, of transparency rather than secrets. Your father built his empire by seeing the potential value in damaged things, she told Verity, as they turned toward home. But he never understood their true worth. The baby grabbed at her mother's necklace with determined fingers, an heirloom piece Imogen had inherited from her own mother, worth little financially but immeasurable in other ways. The simple gesture embodied everything Thad had missed in his calculations. That legacy isn't measured in square footage or investment portfolios, but in connections that survive even betrayal. Approaching the house, Imogen noticed the gallery lights illuminating the east wing, a beacon of transformation. Tomorrow would bring the Foundation's first board meeting, gallery visitors, business decisions, and the countless small moments of motherhood. The future stretched before her, shaped but not defined by Thad's final testament. The victory had come at tremendous cost. Trust, once broken, could never be fully restored. The innocence of believing in uncomplicated love had been permanently altered. But as Verity's small hand patted her chest in sleepy contentment, Imogen recognized that sometimes winning simply means surviving with enough of yourself intact to build something new from the ruins. The last light of day disappeared beneath the horizon as they reached the door. Behind them, waves continued their eternal rhythm against the shore, erasing footprints, reshaping the coastline, demonstrating nature's ancient truth that nothing remains unchanged forever. Not fortunes, not legacies, not even the carefully constructed narratives of men who believed themselves beyond consequence. Imogen entered the house that was now truly hers, carrying her daughter over the threshold and into whatever future they would create together. A future where truth, however painful, would always be valued over comfortable deception. A future worthy of the name Verity. If this story touched your heart and you want to keep following inspiring and moving stories, be sure to check out our upcoming videos. Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to stay updated on new content that can brighten your journey and provide valuable insights. Join us and keep exploring stories that truly matter. I'm sure the next video that pops up on your screen will touch you as well, so click on it now and we'll see you there.